It's 15 years later? No, it's 20 years later. It's been 20 years since A-Bo the Humonkey was a movie that I sat down with a bunch of friends and started story writing. We're recording this in 2026 for a Blu-ray release with Refused Films. And I shot in 07 and we released in 07. It was a fast release, A-Bo the Humonkey. I thought it'd be fun. Since we come on the podcast and talk about everything else, this would make a good little Blu-ray special feature. We'll do a modern Red Cow Arcade podcast, of course, with co-host EJ. But I thought EJ is just simply not enough. When EJ's not enough, who else do you need? You need Dan. Confused Matthew, as many of you know him. I mean, you probably saw the movie, I don't know, maybe a couple years after it first released.
Mm-hmm. I am a gigantic fan of this movie. Yeah, and I have been, I think if it released in 2007, I think I saw it in 2008. I think it was kind of around the time that you and I had started doing a little bit of correspondence. Yeah. And I saw Lord of the Rings by George Lucas, and I thought it was hilarious. And then the second thing that I saw from you was A-Bo the Humonkey. And I was bowled over. I love this movie.
Yeah, it was always a dream, actually, that there'd be a Confused Matthew. Of course, it wouldn't be a Confused Matthew review, because Confused Matthew reviews do tend to be very, highly critical and ungenerous to the movies. There was a period of time where you were taking for $20 or something, I'll review anything you want. And instead of giving you one of my movies, I was like, here's Pumping Iron. That's what my wife wanted. And here's Lady in the Water, which I thought was the worst thing ever.
Now, this is an interesting position for me to be in. When reviewing this movie, I am forced to comment on two things that I don't know very much about. One is documentary filmmaking, and the other is the world of bodybuilding.
For those who haven't seen the movie, it's Red Cow Entertainment's second feature film. Another micro-budget one coming off of the last one. I was like a trauma kid, obviously. I think what kind of got me into the trauma cult from an early age was obviously Cannibal the Musical, obviously Trey Parker, South Park, right? That was like, that satire really compelled me and like seduced me at a very young age. I got my hands on Lloyd Kaufman's filmmaking book. All I need to know about filmmaking I learned from The Toxic Avenger was it. I start connecting with Jonathan Hunt, right? Who, of course, who would go on to be Red Cow royalty. I decided I want to make my own movie. And it was this movie called I Need to Lose 10 Pounds. It was just me and my friend. We didn't know the first thing about screenwriting or joke writing or anything because we were 14. And in the end, it got distributed by Trauma and it won their film festival. And I learned a lot. When you're 14 and you come up with a dumb concept and you're shooting it when you're 16 and you're casting your friends and they're getting sick of it and you're not finishing it until you're 19 and you're distributing it when you're 20. Now it's a thing you came up with when you were 14. I mean, I really wanted to get away from that movie. I remember there was a period of my life where that movie was the only thing I thought about. I was with Nina basically the whole time, all 6 years of producing the film, and she was instrumental in making it. I remember feeling, I was like, what's my relationship with my girlfriend going to be like when this movie is done?
It's over.
Because it was so fundamental to everything. I was a young man. It was like all I cared about was finishing it. And it was an ambitious movie in a lot of ways. And so to this day, I have dreams where I'm like, there's still one scene from 10 Pounds that technically I wrote and technically we never shot. And we're going to do it this weekend and then it's going to be done. I say all of that to set the stage for, it was probably a year before it was finished. I started fantasizing about the next movie. I was like, man, wouldn't it be great to make a different movie? Wouldn't it be cool to make a movie that has kind of a coherent comedic concept at the heart of it? Maybe it's there's a main character that we follow the whole way through.
It's called A-Bo the Humonkey. It's a tale of a half man, half ape.
Maybe it's a satire. Maybe it actually has a little bit of social commentary to say throughout.
I mean, I can't even call him a bad person because he's not a person. He's a thing. A obscene, grotesque mishap that should have been put down years ago, but somehow managed to stumble on the most backwards group of yokels I've ever laid eyes on.
You are very, very fired, asshole.
And I was going to Emerson College for film. I started in 2004. And I was kind of really enthusiastic or optimistic about maybe I'm going to meet some talented people who aren't these guys from my high school that I've had to drag through the first project. That would be really great if I could meet some people. And it's kind of precisely what happened.
A parade!
Parade?
Parade! Parade!
Parade!
What?
I met Doug Bergdorf, who shot this movie. So let's start there, actually. This movie was the first time I shot a project without so I was the DP on my first movie. I didn't know how to direct. So I'm the guy with the tripod and the camera figuring out whatever the next setup is. And so like my form of directing was just finding the next setup and then just making that work. So this was a totally different experience of like, and Doug was a filmmaker too. Doug was a director. He's an experimental, very transgressive filmmaker, but he was my roommate, very talented cinematographer. Like all of his stuff looks, very dynamic and exciting. And
yeah, I noticed like on the rewatch, he has a lot of movement in the camera and like whipping the camera around and with your editing, it like matches some movement in the next scene. It's pretty interesting. Some of the kinetic energy he brings to the film.
There was a couple of times where we just needed to get some pickups or we just needed to shoot like a quick scene. When you're shooting an independent movie and you're doing like these weekend shoots, this was one of those movies where I think we shot from January to probably about April or May. But the first 36 pages, or we did 36 pages in 1 week. So we got like a big bulk of it out of the way during like a holiday break. That was a year after we started writing the movie. So things were moving so much faster. That was the other thing that was exciting, was like the last movie, it was a slog. Like maybe we could shoot it really fast and people's hair won't be different from shot to shot. And, maybe it'll be totally coherent. So that was like my bar. I remember a few times I was like, well, I'll just shoot this on the weekend. And Doug was like, no, you're not doing that. Not without me, in other words. I was like, oh, I could shoot it. He's like, no. He was quite like, I've got to be holding the camera in every shot. Oh, wow. And I'm kind of glad he did, because the whole movie ends up looking like he shot it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think it has a personality, and I like the personality. It goes very well with this transgressive movie.
Like he did a lot of stunty type stuff, but one of the things he did was he was like on rollerblades throughout the city, getting these like kind of like tracking shots. I think actually one of the first things we shot, if not, it might have been the very first thing we shot, was A-Bo Comes to Boston, and so we just needed B-roll of just me and Ted walking around Boston and doing like pratfalls and physical comedy mostly. But we were shooting surreptitiously. We had no permits. We never have had permits. And I was walking around in this mask that was made by Makeup Mark Santos, a local guy from Taunton, who I was connected with. I don't remember who connected me with him, but it was a fan of 10 Pounds. It was some guy who really, really liked 10 Pounds from the area. And he was like, well, I know the special effects makeup artist. And I was like, oh, cool, because the next movie like relies on that. The next movie, I think it was my senior year of high school. And there was some kind of juvenile conversation about like, could you mate interspecies, ape and man? And I think it kind of all came to me at once, where I was like, what would be funny about a movie about that, if there was a half man, half ape, is if you played it like if it was Jack or Forrest Gump or something, like this sort of simple, sweet creature, the misunderstood, but he has a heart, he doesn't have brains, but he's got a heart of gold. I was like, well, what if you took something that was mutant and it
literally had no redeeming qualities.
And
he's an empty vessel.
Is really an insult to nature itself and to God. And you made that your Jack or your Forrest Gump. And that started to be the thing, was like, well, why does the movie think that he's cool? Because the movie itself needs to think that it needs to have saccharine music, it needs to have luscious cinematography, it needs to like dress him up. And then the comedy was the interplay with Hoffman, the villain, the only guy who understands that this thing is like an insult to humanity. And he's, of course, painted as a villain by everybody around him.
But he's like pretty much right.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Just from a writing perspective, I have one regret with A-Bo. So my third movie, Sexually Frank, that was in post-production for like 2 years. Not because I was editing for 2 years, but because I was in a program with EJ, and it was my thesis film. And so like I had to just stretch it out until graduation, basically. So like I had shot it, I had edited it, and I had to stretch it out to graduation. But what that meant was I screened it a lot, and I got a lot of feedback. Sometimes it really is like a scene. Like you need, either a scene that derails the movie and gives you information that is totally incoherent or inconsistent with what you've otherwise been presented. But sometimes you can slot in a scene that kind of like makes everything else click into place. And sometimes you don't identify what that scene is until after you shot or after you've written the movie.
Right.
So Sexually Frank got that treatment. There was a couple of times where like there were these like persistent misunderstandings that I was getting from focus groups about some of the characters and their dynamics. And I was able to slot in a couple of scenes that really, really assisted with that.
Oh yeah. I actually forgot that Sarah had a boyfriend.
Yeah, been about a year now, me and this Sarah. You mind if I come in, bounce a couple things off here real quick?
And A-Bo was shot and released quickly. The thing I would have done differently. Now, you guys tell me, you watched the movie recently, and Dan, you've seen it many times. Tell me if I'm right here. Ted in particular, who is played as this sort of man-child, this sort of like Pee Wee Herman kind of like very out of touch with reality himself. Other than Hoffman, who is kind of compromised as a villain, there's no like normal neutral person in the movie reacting to how ridiculous Ted is. I think one scene could have helped a lot, which would have been when we introduce him in college, because his whole identity is that I'm a college student. I'm an activist college student. Show him in college, have him be surrounded by other college undergrads, and have him be like a complete annoying douche in class.
Right.
That everybody is, and then it'd be like, okay, now we can like proceed. Otherwise, I think there's some misunderstanding of like, maybe the filmmakers think this guy is normal.
I heard, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Humonkey running around here somewhere.
Hoffman is great. He's got his place in there. He's the one who's on the outside of this A-Bo bubble. Everybody else is on the inside, and he can see exactly what's going on, and no one will listen to him, and he's completely fed up. I think it would have played a little bit better if maybe there was somebody that he could bounce off of to say, you know, let's face it, you're a weird dude. What are you doing? Like, yeah.
Willie is his roommate, and Willie's no more normal. Like, Willie doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, and he wants to be friends with Ted and or whatever that relationship is, and
the ambiguous homosexuality. So you have A-Bo. He's this half man, half ape. He was born in this small town. He's been sort of harbored and cared for in this small town. And then this activist college student from the movie calls it the college in Boston.
I love it. I love how vague it is.
Nick, this is Ted Gillette from the college in Boston. He has some questions about A-Bo.
He comes and he goes like, well, really, we need to sort of expand A-Bo. we need to distribute A-Bo to the masses. He's a special lad. We need to fortify his human rights. So he brings him to Boston, and then antics ensue. And there's like I remember we were like struggling with the second act a lot. We were like, what the fuck happens in the second act of this movie? Like the first act came real fast. As far as the writing goes, on my first movie, I wrote it with a friend, with a close childhood friend. He ended up acting in it, but he was like pretty like disengaged very quickly. And I got older and more mature and a little bit more comedically mature. And so I was befriending this other guy, Corey, and he ended up being in a lot more of the movie. And I remember on 10 Pounds, we were rewriting scenes the night before we shot them. So there'd be this kind of like 14, 15-year-old version of the scene. And it was like, we're shooting this tomorrow. All we knew was like, that's the set piece. And then we would sit down and we were like, let's make it way funnier. And we tended to do that, I think, pretty effectively. Like we would sit down and make the scene much, much funnier, and the movie did much better for it. And I remember the first cut of 10 Pounds was like 2 hours. We cut out a half hour. So you can see it was just a chaotic. It was like taking a giant ball of clay and fucking with it for 6 years, basically.
Smacky flaps, apple flips, snippy tits, poopy tarts. Great.
Whereas this was like much more exacting and it had kind of more of a plan. But I remember thinking, I was like, it'd be cool to write this like in a writer's room. You know, I was like smitten by that concept. I was like, where you have story writers. So like, I'll just surround myself with other people who I think are funny or who I care for. And so it ended up being Nina, of course, her brother, Chris, and then my friends Jake and Keith. Keith is one of the co-hosts on Junt's Nest. And of course, he was the star. One of the stars was Sexually Frank. And so his twin brother, Jake, as well. I remember we used to order a whole lot of Charisse pizza, and we were whiteboarding, and we probably whiteboarded like 10 separate occasions for several hours. I don't think the photos actually show what's on the whiteboard, but man, this movie was a different movie. And so, like there was like a cartoon bird sidekick. It's not, I don't know what the fuck was going. Like we invited in my friend Kurt, who acted in the movie a little bit. He's the villainous Hoffman. He's the one that like in the replay of what happened when Hoffman took A-Bo.
I love everyone's like not wearing shirts, and it's like the lower shutter speed, so it's like blurry.
He played the gorilla in 10 Pounds.
Fuck. Oh, sorry, man. Did I choke you?
But anyway, I remember he showed up. He imposed a lot of ideas on us, and the movie started going in a crazy direction. I remember like we had to take a big time out and go like, no, it really needs to have the beats of a family movie. That unlocked a lot of the comedy. The one that I'm most proud of, because I think every movie, whether it's mine or somebody else's, for it to be memorable, there's got to be a scene. There's got to be like a scene that you want to go back to and laugh at and go, oh yeah, that's when like they unlocked whatever. There needs to be some moment where you're like, oh, that's what it all led to. For me, it's when Ted is throwing all the crap out the window.
Oh, yeah, I have that as a note. That is so, that is like hysterical.
I just didn't want to lose you. So you took my son away from me. He's not your son, Ted. He's my son. Ted, I'm so sorry. sorry. Go back to the docks where you belong, you bum.
It's one of those like magic happy moments where we're filming through a window. The shot's really nice. It was shot on HDV, so this was a format, like a very short-lived format. You had to buy slightly more expensive mini DV tapes.
Yeah.
And they shot in, interlaced 1080, I think.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And it was, highly compressed and stuff, so it doesn't look, you can't put a special lens on this or anything else. Like the later movies would be on DSLRs, but this was still on kind of like a camcorder. But it was shot in HD. I remember we were shooting through the window, and Ben Fisher, who plays Willie, who's a really good actor. Like he's actually and he has a comedy career now and stuff. And the other guy who's a really good actor is John Ryan, who plays Hoffman. So we had like two real actors in the movie. He's crying and he's playing it straight, which is what's making it like 10 times funnier.
It's great.
And the window closes. I don't know. There's like the perfect beat where he goes like, "You're my best friend," and it felt. I was like, "Oh yes!" Like that's what it's supposed to be. That's what this whole fucking stupid movie about a half man, half babe is supposed to be. And then in the original cut, I cut it to "And I'll be your crying shoulder," which was honestly a bit funnier than "You Can Cry Tonight."
I love where the window is because it's like close because it's a first floor, but it's kind of submerged in the ground. So the window, there's some comedy in just the framing of him, of Ted just like poking out of the ground, and there's this window. It's just like screaming. He's screaming at him. It's great. Oh, I love it.
That was near, in Brighton. Near the Green Line. Anybody from Boston would kind of know that area. In 2006, that would have cost us like $1,200 for a 2-bedroom apartment, and we thought that was outrageous. Yeah, I remember Doug and I lived there. That was my and Doug's apartment. Doug couldn't be there when I was picking out apartments, and he was like, "Well, this was before we were even going to shoot A-Bo." He was like, "Whatever you choose, make sure it's something we can shoot in." Because we're probably going to make a lot of movies in it. Whatever.
Right.
It's painted like brown, which is like the shitty brown. I think Nina painted it brown. Actually, Doug went on to make a feature film, get this, starring Daniel Scheinert, the director of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's starring that dude. And most of the movie is in the A-Bo apartment.
Oh, wow.
Like there's another universe, Dan, where like there's another movie that's in the A-Bo apartment, and an Academy Award winning director is the star of the movie.
I need to see that now.
Yeah, but you know who's in it? Jake, who plays Ted in this movie, and Ben Fisher, who plays Willie in this movie. It's like the little girl at the beginning who gets hit by the eraser. She's like maybe 2 or 3 years older, and she's in the movie.
When I first saw this movie, I was laughing in the first 5 seconds because you begin the movie 6 seconds before it should have began. You begin it with this just completely irrelevant thing of this girl talking about, I don't know, some karate person, and then she throws a shoe at a girl like,
"He can kill you all. He knows 140 million ways to break your dad's legs." Oh! This has blinded me!
Okay, everyone, let's give Gertrude a hand.
I remember that little girl. I follow her on Instagram. She's like probably 25, dude. I mean, like she's,
yeah, I'm sure.
These kids are all grown up.
And I looked up the actress who plays Bonnie, and she is a published author now. She's written 2 novels. Yeah, pretty impressive.
I mean, you're always coming up with these new and harebrained schemes. There's trees, nature, squirrels.
Remember I was saying like we didn't know what the fuck to do in the second act? One of the solutions to that problem was maybe A-Bo because we knew like he needs to have a new character in the second act. Like we just kind of knew that. Mm-hmm. Like some kind of sidekick, somebody who's an advocate for him. And like, again, it has to be a family movie sort of thing. And I think I was the one who came up with, it should be a little girl. I discovered this thing on A-Bo that I had not discovered on 10 Pounds, which was called newenglandfilm.com. I have no idea if it still exists or if it's a real thing. I think it's all one giant website now. But back then, Boston would have its own classifieds for extras and acting work. And I remember like on my first movie, I said, how am I ever going to cast somebody without paying them? Then on this movie, suddenly I actually was living in Boston and I was in the Boston area. I just put up a classified. It was like A-Bo the Humonkey. It's a secondary, it's a supporting role. It's in most of the second act and third act. Looking for a cute little girl. It's a comedy about this, that, and the other. And I remember I got like an inbox flooded. I was like, no way. I get to just pick anybody I want. I chose the British one because she had a British accent. Like the first, we had no intention of making her British.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I was like,
if it had been an American accent, it wouldn't have been as funny. That one little touch, because she's living in Boston and she's a homeless kid Why does she have a British accent?
Yeah. See, you get it, Dan.
We're having a domestic dispute.
I thought A-Bo would want this if he didn't want to brush his teeth. He never does. You must be A-Bo's daddy. Pleased to meet you.
There's a lot, like, I love the reaction of, like, why is it that? I love that. And that doesn't always hit with everybody.
Hi!
Did it ever even cross your mind to get anyone beside yourself to play A-Bo?
No.
Good.
Never.
Good.
No, and I'll tell you why. However we were going to achieve the prosthetics, it was going to be not fun to be in prosthetics for in an entire shoot. So it's like I'm the only one, I can ask to do that. And I was quite dumpy at the time, and I was like, this will work. So, I can dress up in a dumpy costume. And at the age of 20, I wasn't too afraid of like exploiting myself for comedy. There were other things too. Like I remember, as an example, A-Bo had to like fall down a hill, like an ice hill, a snow hill. So I did like stunts in the movie. Actually, I fell off a very tall diving board in full prosthetic.
You told me that was scary.
It was very scary, and this is a perfect time to show you a very cool relic. Ready? You guys ready? Look who's here.
Oh, it's A-Bo.
Oh shit!
Look who's here.
Oh, look at that.
And so he's a little ripped on this side. And he's still got syphilis on the back. This went through a lot of, he's got his snots still look real good. Gloria is very grossed out by that. It's like his glue snots. So Mark Santos did this, and I remember Alan, who was the main actor in the first movie, very incredible artist. He did the poster back there. He drew that and hand painted that and all that. And he did the poster for 10 pounds too, actually. I asked him, I was like, can you do a design of this Humonkey character? There's a drawing, an initial prototype, and it doesn't quite look like A-Bo. I remember we had a chicken wing sticking out of the back of his head. We thought it'd be really funny if another animal was somehow in there. We ended up deciding against that because we really just had no idea how to like incorporate that into the prosthetic. But Mark tried. There is a sculpture out there that has like the beginnings of the chicken wing. He was like, I don't think this is going to work. And I said, you know what? No problem. Why don't you give him a horrific STD on the back of his head? Something just very, very nasty. So that, like, as the movie is going along and it's very PG-13 or whatever, it's like anytime you see the back of the head, it's like, holy fuck.
If you gave A-Bo to somebody else, they might have tried to play him as being dumb. I'd say this sincerely. You are fantastic in this film, playing A-Bo.
I mean, because I mostly just stand there.
but that's the thing. Anybody else probably would have played A-Bo as a stupid character, and you played him.
Do something with him, yeah.
Yeah, I'm picturing an alternate universe where it's another actor and they're like overacting. There's a lot of restraint with A-Bo, which it makes it funnier, and it's just like occasionally just going, It's just like.
Would you like to come to Boston with me? Open yourself up to new life experiences? Yeah. I'll take that as a yes.
I watch your performance as A-Bo, and I absolutely believe that you do not possess conceptual thought. You are living in the perceptible present. You simply exist. And it's not like A-Bo is making dumb faces. He's just a fucking dumb animal that doesn't know where he is and doesn't know what's going on. And anybody else, I think, would have played him dumb.
They would have tried to incorporate more physical comedy, and generally speaking, he's not there for that.
Yeah.
I like the scenes where somebody else has clearly dressed him up.
A-Bo may as well not even be in this movie. A-Bo is whatever anybody projects onto A-Bo.
Yes, that's the joke.
If A-Bo dropped dead, I don't think he would notice. But
they keep talking about him like he was alive.
Right. What A-Bo is what other people project on him. I am good because I support A-Bo, because A-Bo is special, and me supporting him makes me special.
It was basically commenting on virtue signaling 20 years ago.
Okay, good. I'm glad I got it, yes. Yeah. I saw that first scene where he's trying to explain very reasonably that we can't accommodate this thing because it's just a dumb animal and it's throwing poop and
it threw shit on my face a scene ago.
He's in the school with all the other students and he's kind of like provoking the kid next to him. I saw the scene and I was like, sooner or later this thing is gonna fucking kill someone.
Hi. Hi. Really? This isn't a remedial class.
I think some stories lend themselves towards organic, chronological, let me discover who the characters are, let me discover what the story is through dialogue, let me feel it out, let me live in that world and figure out where it takes me. Then I think other movies where, this is supposed to be satirizing a genre, so it has to hit these genre beats. It makes more sense to beat the story out. We didn't know what to do in the second act, and Bonnie mostly solved that problem. And some of these kind of idiotic interpersonal relationship stuff with Willie. Willie, of course, who's based on a real guy. And we were going to have that guy be in the movie and play Willie. And then it was Kurt, the dude who plays the bad Hoffman, who was like, you should get a real actor like Ben Fisher, because then he could actually carry the movie. And I was like, no, only Willie can be Willie. And then I was wrong. So he's impersonating our friend Willie, who was Jake, who plays Ted. Those dudes, he and the real Willie were best friends. They were writing partners, and they've gone on to, they were like writers on this show called The Chosen for FX, and who's that guy, Markiplier? They wrote a podcast for him. I remember it just, while I'm thinking of it, I want to spit it out. A concept that I had for this movie, or a joke concept that I loved, and I kind of wish we had figured out a way to get it into the movie, a series of stupid misunderstandings. So just like serial misunderstandings. So like every time somebody is talking about something serious, some other character catches only the last 5 words of it and takes away the most ungenerous version of what happened, and that causes like artificial, superficial conflict. But then like it happens with some other character to the other character that's already slighted, and everybody is slighted by one another. And then the movie can magically resolve all their problems, right, through the power of writing. But anyway, the third, to talk about the death of Hoffman, spoilers, because we were like, where does this all go? Does he get his rights? Like, what is this? I think that Hoffman needs to be framed as a pedophile and then murdered by A-Bo. For his sins.
I guess if you think about it, when you're talking about your little misunderstandings, you only catch 5 seconds of what the person
It's kind of
said.
that.
That's kind of what happened to him.
And Gillette, taking A-Bo under your wing was irresponsible and unpredictable. And then, on top of that, to illegally take custody of a small child and put her in the same house as him? Honey, you could have been hurt.
His reaction to that was absolutely priceless. That freeze frame you got on him was comedic gold. That was so funny. Yes, exactly.
The Boston news report scene that follows that actually was one of those scenes where we were like, oh, we need like another beat that explains everything that just happened, because it's fucking confusing, and like and that kind of helped wrap it up. There was that one, and there was one other like that. It was Ted goes to Paul Revere's grave and starts screaming in the middle of the street. We felt like we needed some like momentum going into the debate, like something to lift it up.
Oh, I know what it must have been like, gentlemen, to have your roommate, Benedict Arnold, sell the Louisiana Purchase to some silly redcoat pedophiles.
70 minutes of A-Bo just standing there. I think suddenly he just kills Hoffman, and I think that would be really funny. And then it would be made funnier if he shows up to Christmas dinner and he's covered in blood, and
everyone's just like,
nobody
whatever.
gives a fuck. I have a very fond memory. I don't know if fond is the right word. Surreal. I have a very surreal memory of screening that movie it was at UMass Dartmouth. It was the same place where we premiered 10 Pounds, actually. This theater that it had like a balcony, almost like the kind of place you would screen a Grindhouse movie or something. It probably seated 500, and probably we got 250 or 300 people to come out. It was free, so we were in the paper and stuff. People were able to come out. It was the same theater that I was in a Rocky Horror production, and I always thought it'd be really cool to show my B movies at this theater. It's one of those very rare moments where you work on a movie for a year, 2 years, whatever, and you're finally fucking there, man. You're sitting in the back of the house and you're watching them watch it, and all your stupid little ideas are now on a big screen, and your parents are there. You're just squirming, and it was A-Bo murders Hoffman, and you could hear a pin drop in the place. There's no laughter. Nobody is registering an emotion. And then it cuts to Christmas and nobody's laughing, and it's rocking Jingle Bells and shit, and there's the girlfriend, and the movie ends, and then there's like some applause. I was sitting with Keith, and he just like erupted and laughed. He thought it was the funniest, because he was one of the writers on the movie. He thought it was the funniest fucking thing that like we somehow got the audience to this place of silence.
But it's so funny because like he's the girlfriend's like the girlfriend of both of them. What's going on?
The joke was supposed to be, this is what happens in independent films, was that they both have had girlfriends all along. They're not in fact gay. That was the joke. That was supposed to be the joke. So it was supposed to be 2 girls, and I had casted 2 girls, and one didn't show up.
But I think it's funnier that they both.
We said, all right, then they're in a tuple, and you know, it's even stranger. And,
I thought it was better. That's better that way.
Yeah, I guess like when you repaint it like that, it's more like everybody involved is a Satanist.
Sam, there's children in the room. Remember what I told you about that?
That's at Nina's mom's house. And she had these little like Christmas figurines that like Ted was supposed to be putting up, you know, sadly. And I remember he was like fucking with them way too much, these glass figurines. And Nina's mom shouted at him very suddenly. She was like, would you stop that? Like, oh my God. Or I remember, yeah, it was like one of those awkward things. Like 20 years later, it's like stays with me. And at that same shoot, Hoffman was there. I don't know why he was there. He was hanging out with us, John Ryan. He was 20 as well, but he came off like a much more of a grown-up than the rest of us did. He smoked and he wore vests and he was larger than the rest of us. He was having like a really enthusiastic conversation with Nina's mom, like a very friendly one that she was really into. I think they were talking about Murder, She Wrote or some show that Nina's mom loves. But he's dropping F-bombs every sec. He's like, oh, I fucking love that episode of Columbo, Mrs. Shaleski. He just had no clue.
A-Bo the Humonkey?
Probably it was shot in, my guess would be like, it's like 25 days, discrete days of shooting. Another thing I'll say about Bonnie, the actress who played Bonnie, they invited me out. I remember I was at Nina's house. I'm on like a family computer, because nobody had mobile devices. In fact, I was getting so much email about casting and stuff. I remember Aaron, who produced the movie, was like, maybe you should get a BlackBerry, he told me.
Oh, wow.
During the shoot, when John Ryan is with his like lawyer friend, and the lawyer friend is trying to talk, I cut out most of that scene.
Whoa. You didn't tell me that, James.
What?
James, are you special needs? Huh? Are you?
Where he was blinking, he couldn't stop blinking. He's in the background of some movie that The Rock was in. They shot in Boston. You can see him like in the trailer.
Blinking.
All of these guys they all did extras work. That was the cool thing. Like they all were extras in big, huge movies at any time anything was shot in Boston. And so even like if I came around, I was like, I'm making a half man, half ape movie. They're like, cool, I'll be in it. So like you ended up with all these movies that had the same fucking people in them every time. There was a guy who played like a homeless dude that was fighting with A-Bo. And I remember like, he wanted to be in a lot more of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, so when does the homeless guy come back?
Just for the same, sir.
Shooting on the T. That was a really cool thing, was like we were in the city and the story is about being in the city. And so you could get all this kind of visual dynamicism, the T, you know, a radio booth. It was pretty awesome. I think the movie has like a real identity. And I really like this poster because it sort of has the mossy rock with the church and it has Boston in the background.
And you shot the parade. He shot the parade.
The parade was that was the first thing we shot. That was the very first thing we shot because it was Christmas. Or it was November 1st or something, and it was the Quincy Parade. And sure enough, like Alan, who was the actor who's in 10 Pounds, I cast him as like the news guy. And this girl, Kim, was the news girl. And she actually was really good, but we got terrible audio, and I couldn't get ADR of her. So when you watch the movie, her voice is Nina.
And I'm Lynn Johnson. Now today's the day that's going to go down in this country's history. Isn't that right, Derek?
Oh, you betcha.
Oh, that's funny.
She was available. Oh, I didn't finish my story about Bonnie. So I'm getting all these headshots of kids, and some of them are like 2-year-old Indian children and stuff. I'm like, well, that's not Bonnie.
Unless they were British Indian.
Yeah, like, well, you know, then let's talk. She's like, Holly is going to be in this like stage production tonight at such and such a theater in whatever, Alston. Do you want to come out? And back then, I just got in my car and went up to Boston. And I was like, sure. Because she like comped me tickets. And it was like a very artsy fartsy. I didn't drink then and I don't drink now. I've never drank a sip of alcohol in my life for some reason. We could go into it sometime. But I haven't. And she handed me like a big glass of red wine. Like here you go. And I wanted to like jive with her because I wanted to cast the kid in the movie. And I was like, oh no, I can't. This is what came out of my mouth. And she was like, oh, why? And I go, liver.
I have a failing liver.
So she must have like moved forward thinking like this dude's got a liver problem. In retrospect, even though she wasn't British, the little girl with the teeth at the beginning of the movie, probably could have been Bonnie. And yeah, like I said, that girl was in future movies with Doug.
But the British accent, I think, because it's like, why is there like a Oliver Twist like homeless person in Boston? It's funny.
Exactly.
I know you're A-Bo. I don't mean to seem like a weirdo or anything, but I followed you home from school yesterday. Come on, I'll show you all my favorite places.
So we got to talk about Jake. Jake was a very eccentric human being in general. One of the funniest people I've ever met. Like, just everything he said made me laugh, even when it wasn't supposed to. He just had this kind of jello kind of physicality to him. You know, he was chinless and, you know, he had these glasses. He couldn't see very well. He just was like kind of a cartoonish person in general, but he was also very smart and he was very funny on purpose as well. Yeah, he was the one who came up with like, before Ted shakes your hand, like he basically breaks his own wrist first and then offers it.
Yeah. Pleased to meet you, Coach. So I guess this is apparently my last day of shooting on A-Bo the Humonkey. It feels good. I feel like we've accomplished a magnificent thing. I feel that this project is cool.
I'll say too, so a word about the makeup. You know, the conventional wisdom would be that you would have this be multiple pieces because you'd apply like one piece, and you know you've seen making of specials, right? And I remember telling Mark, I was like, it kind of needs to be one piece because it just needs to be a mask. And I was like, I think it's okay if it's a mask because it doesn't need to be like flush with my skin because the whole thing is supposed to be polyps and malformed and stuff. And he was like, all right, I think we can do it all as one piece. And he was going to Tom Savini's School of Makeup in Pittsburgh. And he was like, could you come out to Pittsburgh? Because if you do, then my teacher right now is the guy who did Babylon 5 and all this other like, major Hollywood makeup. And I was like, okay, yeah, is it free? He's like, yeah, totally. Because you would just be a subject in my class, basically. So we go out to the middle of buttfuck Pittsburgh. Nothing's there. You can see the video. We have video blog footage of it. It was just a hellhole. But there was this building in the middle of the hellhole that happened to be Tom Savini, of the Dead movies, his school of makeup. But what there wasn't was a film school nearby. There was nobody directing movies or making movies anywhere near all of this makeup and artistic talent.
So they were hungry. They were hungry for somebody who's making a movie.
Well, and then I come along and I go, oh, it's like a Troma. I didn't say it was a Troma movie. I said my last movie got distributed by Troma. And they were like, oh, it's a Troma movie. Everybody at the school was like, basically trying to take Mark's spot. They were like, well, I can do better than Mark. Like, everybody was starting to compete with, I was like, well, he's from Taunton. He's from fucking Taunton, so he wins. I think I might have spent $200 all told just on some materials, but we did the headcast thing, which was very exciting, where they cover you in this stuff. And then he built a sculpture of me that was in his basement for a while. And then he sort of built the prosthetic on top of that. So you're looking at, with this one, you're looking at the second A-Bo. And this was made towards like the latter 30% of shooting. And so most of the movie, you're seeing the first mask, which just got obliterated, just got ripped to shreds. And this one's still in pretty good shape. I remember it now, it just smells like plastic, but I remember for a long time, it smelled like rotten eggs really badly. So it stunk while I was shooting the movie. The original concept was that he was going to have fangs. I basically spit them out like in the first 5 minutes of shooting. I was like, this is not. But Nina would always take like the eyeliner and the spirit gum, because this was the eye that it would always be glued to. The skin just came off my fucking face.
I get spirit gum in my eyebrows for days. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but the skin in this region has gotten so raw and dead. And if you compare it to that, you can maybe see a difference. But I don't think it's ever going to heal.
Because that's the only part of the mask that needs to work. Yeah, the rest is just a mask.
Yes.
So it just needed to kind of blend in. And I think generally speaking it did. But the first mask started to get ripped up and fucked up quite a bit. I mean, we were like gluing it back together again before shooting a lot. Or somebody would have to call out like, hey, A-Bo's like getting ripped again. And Mark was like, I'll try to rush like a new one because these aren't easy to make. The last time we used the first mask was as a stunt mask when he goes in the water. So when he jumps off the diving board, and that was actually like one of the last days of shooting. Look
at that. Oh.
that was the end of that mask. And then when I come out and I dry off, I go into this mask.
Oh, okay. Magic, moving magic.
Movie magic, folks. I'll also point out my my mom made this.
I was going to ask about that.
And look what's on the back of the head.
It has the chicken bone.
Because when she made it, we were still in like that part of the prototype. And he has fangs, and I still have him. He's got I think in the drawing we gave him a Band-Aid on his stomach. I don't know why. Of course, I played a stoner in the movie too, named Topher the Toker.
Wilster, I hate to break this to you, but we're all a little bit out of touch with reality.
Very characteristic of me.
Like you're driving around, it's like, oh.
Holy crap, does anyone know how to get to this place? Delilah, hon, did you print out the map class?
Did you like print out MapQuest? I was like, oh, that's beautiful.
So dated.
Beautiful dated reference.
That was a fun character because I didn't have to put a mask on. that was enjoyable.
Well, there you have it. Toker Harris in front of the State House. Watch out for the street.
All of the people who played stoners, I think at least 2 or 3 of them were very much real actors. That's another very cool thing about making the movie was when we would cast speaking roles or like full, that weren't British girls, we could just kind of go to some musical theater actor or something at Emerson. Like almost always somebody was a friend of a friend or something. You'd be like, hey, you want to be in like this independent movie? And it was just a culture of like saying yes. And I'll say this too. Independent films were all the hotness in 2007.
Right.
Would you say that around that time people loved movies more than they ever have? Maybe like in all of history. Like people loved movies.
Yeah, and people like would watch the award shows and actually like the movies that were winning awards too, and they were seemingly indie looking movies. Like I could probably do a scaled down version of that.
Yeah. So when somebody was running around with a camera making a movie, people were like, ooh. Seems fun. Yeah. Now it's like, what? Oh, you must be shooting a YouTube video. I mean, YouTube had just come out. That's the and I put up the video blogs on YouTube. I remember. Oh, the scene where Ted is at the lockers and like introduces himself like a vampire to that little girl. That was the other pickup shoot where we were like, oh, that would be good. I think we thought that was like our version of trying to correct for like the comedy problem. Let's have her be the reactionary against him. So we kind of tried to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, A-Bo. Yeah, I think he's somewhere around here. I actually think he's at the pool.
The pool? Great! Okay, thank you!
I like Lloyd Kaufman being in a different room and with stucco walls.
I actually, it's funny, like his presence in the movie gets mentioned a lot, and thank you for bringing it up because we can't forget to talk about it. But like, I actually regret it. Every time I watch the movie, I'm like, this is stupid. Why is he in a different room? And I remember being so confident. I was like, no, the power of match cutting, it's going to look fine. We just need to find a white wall. And there was no fucking white wall at the Troma building. I stayed at Doug's house, the cinematographer's house, because he lived in Jersey. And we could take a train into New York City. So he's like, oh, you can stay at my house. And I didn't realize that he was loaded. But I went there and he was like, well, so you're welcome to sleep in the movie theater if you'd like. It was a movie theater. In the blog footage, you can see me like saying hello from Doug's movie theater. And then we went into New York City and there was Lloyd just like sitting there at the desk. And I remember being like, oh, wow, it's like amazing to be here at the Troma building. It really takes my breath away. And Lloyd goes, yeah, it takes my breath away too. But he was very available. All I did was email. I was like, I said, you distributed my last movie and we met at Troma Dance in Utah. Would you do it? And they're like, Saturday? It just like set it right up. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. Barring any liver problems. It should have been a more fully formed excuse. Like, I'm currently in liver failure, something like that.
Then again, you just say liver and no one's going to question it. They're just going to be like,
oh,
okay.
This guy has a problem.
Well, speaking of not questioning, I will tell you that walking around the city with this prosthetic on, see, what happens is people, they don't investigate it. They don't go like, he's wearing a mask, they're making a movie. And because the camera, you could never see the camera. So as far as they knew, it was like 2 dudes in trench coats and one of them was like severely deformed.
Honestly, with what you see on the T day to day, it's possible.
Imagine seeing this and thinking it's real. And I turn around and I have open wounds. Well, so we're talking about audio a little bit. We didn't use lav mics. We started to on Sexually Frank, and that is the way, friends. You want a field recorder and you want some lav mics, and then you're good. we had an audio guy. His name was Topher. So that's where Topher the Toker came from. Yeah, there's like a boom mic problem in the whole, you never get to see a boom mic, thank God, but just being in any way tethered to a camera, especially a camera that's moving a lot via an XLR cable, it was a total pain in the ass and a problem solved in future movies. But I think the sounds pretty good, the whole movie, and thanks to Topher. We didn't have to ADR a lot. On 10 Pounds, we ADR'd like half of the movie. And you don't want that. You'd lose so much comedy that way. John Hunt, we'll talk about his involvement a little bit. So he was not as involved in this one. He was heavily involved in 10 Pounds. Then he was the audio guy in Sexually Frank, and then on Having Fun Up There. So he was like heavily involved in the third and fourth movies. This is like the only movie that John Hunt's like not really super involved with. He wasn't there for the vast majority of shooting days. He was only there when he played like the principal and just a couple of scenes. And he did a fine job. He plays John Hunt in the movie. He's featured prominently in the poster. There he is.
Yeah.
But then after the movie was done, he sat down at his MIDI keyboard, which he bought specifically for this movie, and he used this really old version of Cakewalk, because it was the only software he knew how to write music in. And he personally orchestrated all of the music in the movie, from You Can Cry Tonight to the A-Bo rap. Rap about A-Bo.
They're getting by and doing what they can. They forgot about one thing. Fucking Cracker Hoffman. Hoffman's really bad. Yeah, he's quite a disgrace. Now he's all fed up. Too much poo in his face.
It's in his DNA. He was born a human. He looks like an ape, mixed with a man. He's a humonkey.
I think that rap kind of slaps, actually.
Me too. For all the Star Trek nerds out there, I've tested this, and if you play You Can Cry Tonight to the opening of Star Trek Enterprise, it's better than what they used for the opening of Star Trek Enterprise. It fits better, so yeah.
Well, now we know what to edit.
Yes, please edit that.
Now it's time to be set free.
You know, A-Bo, I'm sorry I couldn't find a robe for you. I guess they just don't make them in plus-size retard.
That was really fun to record those songs. But he did a great job. Like, for instance, there's like a You Can Cry Tonight overture that plays in the opening credits. It's actually quite nice.
Yeah, it is.
No.
I remember writing that song. I was like, we need some just saccharine, stupid 90s song. And it's something like You Can Cry Tonight. And then he was like, You Can Cry Tonight. And we just got through that part. And then it was me who was like, come all over me. And then that was it. And I was like, that's the joke. It needs not go any further.
Such a beautiful sight.
It goes on forever.
Has nothing to do with the movie, really. It's just.
And is of course me singing in that song. Me who is like can't really sing, and then a singer who can very much sing. So she's interplaying with me.
Well, where'd you find the singer?
Oh, her name was Nicole, and she was a childhood friend. She was
okay.
wow. And she actually she sings Does Anything Smell Better Than Corn from the 10 Pounds movie. This was definitely the first time I had a ton of fun making a movie. That's like worth saying, I think.
It shows.
Oh, yeah.
You know that feeling of going to camp? You go to camp and you do a thing that you never do in your real life, and then like you're done, and then it's like sad. Like that was the vibe on this.
Yeah, the energy shows, and I think maybe it's because of Doug's filming too. Just everything feels like everyone's having fun.
Those days were really fun because we didn't have to depend on anybody else. It was really just me and Doug and Nina. We would just drive around, find some stupid location, and do some pratfall. He would just Doug has an amazing eye, so he'd be like, "Oh, like just go." Like he would just compose some frame, and he was like, "Be funny." I knew that whatever he had on his side of the camera was interesting. I don't think it's in the final movie. There's one that I did where there's like a box, and A-Bo just lifts up the box and puts it down, and then stands on it, and that's literally all he does. He just stands on a box. So we were definitely having fun shooting all that stuff, or like him just kind of passed out on on like a toy dinosaur. I remember shooting in hotel rooms. Back then, I think we made this whole movie for like $2,500. Nina funded the whole thing. So having to pay a couple $100s or $100 or something to be in a hotel for a night was like, ooh, this is really going to like stretch the budget. I remember we were in the script. We thought it was really funny for some reason for Hoffman to offer A-Bo a biscotti.
A-Bo, I'm sorry I couldn't find a robe for you. I don't think they make a size retard.
We thought that'd be really funny. They'd be like, would you like a biscotti? It's a grown-up food.
What about biscottis? We don't have biscottis. What are we supposed to do? There's a bunch of lines about biscottis.
I sent out Aaron to like go get biscottis. It's like super important that it's a biscotti. For some reason, we thought that was really funny. And then he came back with those like rolled coffee wafer cookies.
That's more iconic now.
Would you like a rolled wafer cookie?
The time I was on set that I was wheezing with laughter, I was like, this is the funniest fucking thing I've ever shot in my life. And I don't know if anybody else finds this as funny as me. Putting Bonnie in the bathtub when there's an available room.
No, I found that as funny as you did. I saw her in the bathtub and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're going for they're poor, and she's like, no, there's an available fucking room.
No, it's great.
She says, she's like, do you think I'll ever get my own room? Willie's room. I mean, no one's using it. It cuts a little bit wider, and he just turns away from her, just elegantly. Just completely disregards the comment. He goes, be a nightlight that protects our sleeping baby. Burn clear and steadfast tonight. And starts singing Tender Shepherd.
Tender shepherd.
And he gets the lyrics wrong, by the way. And I thought that was really funny while I was shooting. He's like, tender shepherd, watches over all his sheep. And he goes, all is quiet, all's at peace. Definitely not weird.
All is quiet, all's at peace.
And then we get that other shot where he says goodnight. He's just got this kind of like flighty, I don't know, this like way he walks on air when he's moving around like Dracula.
It's like like goofy, rubbery Dracula.
Hey, he's just in silhouette, and he goes, fall asleep. Good night, Bonnie.
Fall asleep. Good night, sweetheart.
The whole thing is just playing against itself, you know? That was comedically what we were trying to achieve. It was like a movie that plays against itself. That's what it is.
The best comedy satires are the ones that are completely and utterly stupid on the surface, but if you actually think about what it's saying, that whole message about, as you said, like virtue signaling and overcorrecting, and right. I thought that was just brilliant. I outside of just all the wacky fun and the silly jokes, I think that what it was actually saying, that really got me cracking up, and I thought it was really smart, and I thought it was really great.
So there's all this stupid shit that happens during production that makes the movie either funnier or at least more bizarre. It has a comedic vision, and it executes on that comedic vision.
The whole movie feels like self-actualized. You know, it just feels like it had its purpose, its goals, and I feel like it met all of those goals in my mind.
One shitty thing that's not a very cool dude to party with. $4.
And I don't think there could possibly be another ending to the movie other than him murdering Hoffman. Like, it's like that has to be where it leads up to somehow.
I agree completely.
I remember physically where I was. I was in Chris Shaleski's dorm room, and I was like, he has to kill Hoffman. That's what it is, of course. Like, he's got to murder him, and no one. And it needs to be the case that nobody cares, because that will prove the point. Like, nobody was ever using their brains about this thing. You know?
And it was never about A-Bo. A-Bo could kill a man, and they don't care. It's about them.
And Hoffman has enough rationality to see through it, and he gets murdered. So.
He dies for it.
He gets killed for it. I have two very minor issues. The first one is how Hoffman kind of gets a little too villainy.
I think that we got caught up in the idea that A-Bo was ruining his life and he was bitter about it. And this is not a good writing reason, but I think we were having too much fun with how villainous John Ryan can actually be. Because John Ryan, I just really like as an actor. And there's like one shot in particular where he looks right at the camera and he goes, no. I think it killed us. John Ryan and Ben Fisher, who played Willie, we were all in a production of Cannibal the Musical together.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, it was just fun to be in a production with those guys. And aside from the fact that I was a big fan of Cannibal and wanted to be part of it, I remember also being like, it would be a really great idea to be in like a a play around here, because then I could totally farm actors from it. Like I could become friends with them and farm. That's good advice for filmmakers, for young filmmakers out there. Is like maybe go be in a play and become friends with good actors, because you can basically like audition everybody right there. You can establish these cool multi-film relationships. Sometimes if you make it fun for people. We had a big conversation not long ago about whether or not you should financially ruin yourself when making a movie, and and how time crunched you are and all the rest of it. And I think I've been in extremely pressurized, stressful situations doing it. And first of all, if you can, give yourself a little more time to shoot a movie. Like give yourself a series of weekends. You really don't want to exhaust everybody if you can help it. So if you can spread it out a bit. My fourth movie we shot in 9 days, and it works really well in terms of getting it done. But in terms of keeping everybody fed and happy and interested and engaged, it's not perfect. But I would say even if you are in a pressure cooker, you kind of have to pretend that you're not. And the reason for that is because the likelihood that you're going to show up and shoot something that is what you wanted to shoot or what you had envisioned shooting, it's very low. It's extremely unlikely that you're going to be able to execute on whatever your vision was. On an indie film, I'm saying. Especially a micro budget. So you have to show up with this kind of like, what are the opportunities? I'd be totally open to opportunity. So there's that. And then I think also like if your crew and your cast see that you're calm, then they will be calm, because then they'll feel like, oh, we're actually making the movie. If they're calm, well, what happens? If they're an actor, they're going to be more authentic. You can't do that when you're under a tremendous amount of stress, I don't think. And two, when they have like an idea or they want to like try something different, they'll probably suggest it because things aren't crazy and stressful and difficult. You can't make a virtue out of like, we were stressed out of our heads.
Is there any job in the world where you would want the person who is in charge of something or important to be completely stressed out and second guessing themselves?
There like has to be space. And the truth is often there's not. Often it's like we're in this location for an hour. Logistically, you have to be moving. You have to keep moving. You can't be wasting time. But sort of like philosophically, you have to be like, oh, like let's luxuriate in how funny that was. I've been on enough like indie movie sets to know that one of the biggest mistakes people make that eats time and wastes time is taking the take from the top again. If you reset and run an entire scene again 5 times, you probably just ate 45 minutes. But if you figured out what your setups were, you're like, okay, it's like this close-up, it's this close-up, it's this wide, and it's these 2 mediums. And at the end, we'll get the action. Like if you just kind of know what like your execution plan is, and you're an editor too, because I edit all my own movies. And so you know how you're editing while you're shooting. Well, then you know where you can take it back from. You can be like, oh, we'll just take it back from this line, and then we can keep moving. And, and that takes a lot of pressure off the actors, because if they didn't know their lines, which is really common with indie films, or they just feel, you ever try to speak something out loud and, like, for some reason, you can't speak that sentence?
Of course.
That sentence is not possible. That happens to actors. And so, like, if you can just kind of reset to that sentence, figure that sentence out for them, and then keep moving. If you do that 20 times in a shooting day, you probably saved yourself 3 hours or 2.5 hours or something like that.
This isn't a huge thing. I don't know when I noticed this. I've seen this movie 6,000 times. The movie opens with Bonnie telling the story of A-Bo. And then we don't see Bonnie for another half an hour. So she's introduced really, really late. And at some point I was like, you know what? I think somewhere along the line I actually forgot that she was the one telling this story. She's introduced just a little bit too late. That was the only other.
We came up with her for the second act. And then I think we were like, oh, wait, she's the one telling the story. That explains what a Humonkey is in the first place. And then we'll meet her in the second act. Hopefully it's not 30 minutes, because the movie itself is like 70.
I was watching it the other day, and I looked at the timestamp, but the timestamp said 30 minutes. Maybe it was like 28. It was longer than I thought it was. Not that that's a huge deal, but sometimes when I'm watching that movie, I tend to forget that she's actually the one telling
this whole story. Yeah. But she finishes the story immediately before he kills Hoffman down the hallway. He's in the building. Now you say he's in the building when she's telling the story.
Oh, shit. I didn't notice that.
I wasn't thinking about that either.
Well, let's hope nobody else notices that.
We shot her classroom scenes in my old elementary school. Can't believe anybody let us do that.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It was a different time. It was 20 years ago. And we shot the science classroom stuff in a UMass Dartmouth science class. We did get permission, but they mostly just like opened the place up for us. I think we covered everything you could possibly say about A-Bo the Humonkey, I think.
It has been an honor to talk about this. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And EJ, thanks for watching again. You saw the movie, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, and I remember being a little afraid that you weren't going to like the movie. And
yeah, I remember you sheepishly gave me a link when we were, and you were like, maybe this movie, maybe. And I remember like very positively reacting to it, and you're like, oh yeah, you were like so excited.
Really?
Probably you were traumatized by that first theater experience, but
yeah, there was that. Like a year after that screening, there was like a film club at Emerson. There was like, we love A-Bo the Humonkey. I was like, how do you even see it? Like this guy had a DVD from the screening and then we copied it and then and I was like, well, that's great. And they were like, well, could you come to, we meet on Wednesdays at 9:00. We'll show the movie and then you can talk to, 12 of us or something. And things like that would happen. And it screened at Trauma Dance. I did not sell it to Trauma. I think I could have easily after 10 pounds, but 10 pounds kind of crashed and burned at Trauma. They didn't really want to do anything with it. But A-Bo I never sold. And now it gets to be on a boutique Blu-ray, which is kind of a dream come true, actually. So thanks to Liam for seeing the movie and for putting it out. And thank you guys for watching it.
Yeah.
You don't think I look like a little girl, do you?
I just know he's human foster dad, Ted. You can't say humonkey without saying human.
Yeah.
You can cry tonight.
You can cry tonight.
It'll be alright.
It'll be alright.
Just
come on me.
I will dry your tears.
I will dry your tears.
And erase your fears.
And erase your fears.
Night, sweetheart.
Good night, Moon. Good night, Ted. Good night, A-Bo.
A-Bo, I'm sorry I couldn't find a robe for you. I don't think they make a size retard.